deep in the heart of Texas.
We're in the business of winning.
Don't bet against me.
I don't bet anyway.
Lose your life.
All right, we are live with Michael Jordan Fans Are the Best. Once again, I am the worst tech guy in the world, so I started the stream and ended it immediately. But I promise you I will get it soon enough. For those that are here, NMB Sports, welcome back. Nick, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on again.
I appreciate it as well. Today we're going to be talking about the Mavericks and Michael Jordan, the history between those two teams, amongst other things. Also, if you're in the chat, please ask questions to either of us. And if you really got something to call in about, you're welcome to. Just join the Discord channel in the description, and we'll have a chat about things. So, Nick, what is your most memorable moment with Michael Jordan and the Mavericks?
So this one's actually pretty easy. So I obviously grew up a Mavericks fan, and for those who don't know, some point shortly after Cuban bought the Mavs, he started doing this thing where if you come to the game and you have like your body painted and what have you, there's a good chance you'll get into the game for free. He reserved like the outer ring around the lower section, so you can only stand. There's no seats, but you can essentially stand around the outside of the lower bowl or that first tier, as long as like there's too many people. If there's too many people, then you have to do a skit or something like that. They have something you have to do, and the best people get voted on by the Mavs staff, and they pick who gets to go, right? So, me and my friends went to his last game in Dallas. It was on December 23rd, 2002. It was like 6 or 7 of us total, and we went. Obviously, it was like a big game, so there was like a ton of people. We had to do a skit, and we did like this. Like the first half, the Mavs are down. They go into the locker room. We did like some kind of hype speech or something, and then they come back in the second half and win. It was something like that. You had to do it on the spot, so that's what we came up with. And we did that, and it was like came down to the wire, and we got in. And so essentially, we got to go and see MJ's last game in Dallas. And of course, by this time, Dallas was pretty good, so Dallas won. But that is easily the best Dallas Michael Jordan moment that I have. Granted, he was on the Wizards, but still, it was still pretty cool to go to. But yeah, that's easily my best memory. I think I was a freshman in college when that happened.
Nice. That sounds like a fun time. For me, with being a 76ers fan, I never heard of them given any opportunities like that where you're able to just get in for free.
Yeah.
So that's an awesome story. And I misheard, but how well did Michael do that game?
I don't think he did particularly well. I did have it pulled up for just a quick second. Hang on. Should have wrote it down, but let's see.
While you're looking it up, I'll address the chat real fast. Tim Nick's in the chat, and he says, "Hey all," and he says, "Any Mavs fans here? Me, not sorry, but maybe someday." I actually always liked the Mavs a little bit. I never really got into them. I was a San Antonio Spurs fan for my Texas teams, I guess, if you want to say that. But I really became a San Antonio Spurs fan after Tim Duncan got there. It was really more of being a Tim Duncan fan. I'm originally from the Virgin Islands, and so is he. Not many people get to be the best in the world from the Virgin Islands, so that's kind of why I like the Spurs. And then eventually, just watching him be so successful, and just throughout his career, made me a Spurs fan. So yeah.
Yeah, I obviously have a lot of respect for the Spurs. Sucks that they had to be good when Dirk was good, but that's just the way it is, right? Jordan went 5 of 15 1 of 1 from 3. Oddly enough, 2 of 2 from the line, 7 total rebounds, 8 assists, 2 blocks, 13 points total. -2 in the box, plus minus. But so not bad. Maybe not the best night, but it's okay.
Yeah. RC on Hoops, Caitlin Clark in Iowa. What's up? Good. He said, "What's up? What's good? What's up, RC? How you doing?" And please, for everyone in the chat, if you have any questions for us about the Mavericks or Michael Jordan, please put it in the chat. So I went and I was looking up some old articles, and I saw one about Sean Bradley, where he was a rookie. He was on the Mavericks, and Michael Jordan came to town in Dallas.
Well, he was he was a rookie with the Sixers his first year in Dallas.
Well, he said he was in Dallas, I have to check it out. What I reading the story, so unless they were playing there, I knew he was a Sixer, but just hearing the story, maybe I misunderstood it, and I honestly didn't go check to see if he was. But I think he was on Dallas as a rookie. I think he just went to the Sixers, but irregardless, or regardless, because irregardless isn't a word. I got told sternly before. However, he talked about how he saw Michael Jordan just staring him down, and it was really just going to be a one-on-one where Michael drives to the basket, and he's like, "Oh my God, Michael Jordan's about to dunk on me." So he's like, "I can't let him do that. I'm a rookie. I have to do something." So he ran up to him a bit, and he hit him in the leg, and he hit Michael really hard, and he fell down. And he said that he thought he killed Michael Jordan because he didn't get up for a while. And sadly, this was a couple years ago. And for those that don't know, Sean Bradley actually got into a motorcycle accident, and he's paralyzed. So he's actually in a wheelchair now.
Yeah. I actually thought it might have been a bicycle accident, but maybe it was a motorcycle. It's been a couple years.
Well, if it was a bicycle, I definitely just took it as a motorcycle. I can't say that I have heard of anybody getting paralyzed from a bicycle. I'm sure it has happened.
Yeah, it's really sad. Really sad.
He must have. Yeah, if it was a bicycle, he must have been doing something crazy with it or got hit by a car or something.
Well, he is 7'6". Like, he could, off a bicycle, he could fall pretty awkwardly. That's a long fall.
That's got to be a huge bike, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, how tall is that bike?
So, my Sean Bradley story, it's like I went to like a lot of summer camps in Dallas when I was younger, and like went to a Mavs camp every so often. And I'll never forget the first time I saw Sean Bradley, and I had to have been like elementary or something, and seeing the first time I ever realized like professional athletes are just different. This was like my first kind of like shock and awe moment as a kid, was seeing him having to walk through a door and have to like literally duck under like most doors like that. And I was just like, man, that is just a crazy human being, right? And like he could just reach and grab the rim. It was like my first like, I don't even know if he's human, like I'm not sure I'd call that a human. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm pretty tall, and I generally, like, unless it's some old style door, I just can't really, I just have to be careful. Like, I can't stand up straight. I think most doors are probably like 6'6" or something like that. So if I'm like walking like really tall with a stride, I could probably hit my head on the door.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine having to duck under every door.
Mm-hmm.
Because most size doors are, I'm usually like right at the top of them. But he was absolutely humongous, and sadly, I think a lot of people remember him for just getting dunked on.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
He kind of became a meme after, like an old school meme before they were the thing, but just a joke.
Yeah,
and he was a really good defender, and just people kind of just take his worst moments and amplify them as if they were every moment.
He's like, I think he's top 10 or 15 in blocks all time, something like that. He's up there somewhere, I believe.
I guess a sidetrack a little bit. The Vince Carter dunk in what was it? I forget. Was it the Olympics or was it the All Star game? No,
The,
it couldn't have been the Olympics. It had to been no, that's a different guy. When it wasn't Sean Bradley that he
when he
dunked on the
jumped
ridiculous
over the
dunk.
guy?
Yeah,
That was the
yeah.
Olympics, yeah. That was the Olympics, for sure.
But it wasn't Bradley though,
No, it
right?
wasn't
It was
Bradley.
I forget who it was, but it was some huge guy. If you're in the chat, please let me know.
Yeah, that guy was like a 7-footer or something like that, and he kind of ducked down whenever he jumped, so maybe it's like 6'9", 6'10", but yeah, that was pretty. And then he almost killed Kevin Garnett when he like turned around and like did a fist pump. He like came inches away from just absolutely knocking out Kevin Garnett, which I always thought was funny.
Yeah, that absolutely. I put a poll out, and again, I kind of sidetracking a little bit, but I put a poll out a little bit. If you had to replace somebody on the Space Jam team, I know Sean Bradley was on that team. Who would you have replaced him with?
So are we talking about their final Monstar version, or who like would I replace on the team?
Well, the Monstar, like if he had to be who would you replace Sean Bradley as a Monstar?
Oh, for that time. They had Patrick Ewing, right? Wasn't he on that team?
Yeah, he was already on the team.
And Larry Johnson, Muggsy Bogues. Who was the other one?
Charles Barkley.
Charles, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Man. From like the 90s? I guess Akeem, but I don't know. When did Space Jam come out in 96, right?
Yeah, it came back. They came back after he got back in the league.
David Robinson, Akeem. I guess David Robinson, I guess, kind of makes more sense. He's probably got a little bit more of like a relatable personality to the average American, being military, and like Akeem's got a bit of an accent, with nothing wrong with that, but you'd probably put David in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go to the chat real fast. Tim Nick is talking about Universe Galaxy again, saying about the scoring thing. I think you brought this up last time, Tim. And he wants to diminish MJ's accomplishments. And then he says, Galaxy claimed that his takes are purely objective, but saying scoring is the easiest thing in basketball is far away from being pure objective. That dude takes trolling to new heights. Yes, he does. And that's what I think is entertaining about him. It's just he does not get off that horse. Michael says, hi, guys. How you doing, Michael?
Would you say being an elite scorer in the NBA is the hardest thing to master out of other things you have to be the best at in terms of being good in the NBA?
That's a hard question.
Because creating your own shot's a whole different, like, not just being a good shooter, but like being able to score, like create your own shot.
So if you mean the total package, like an ISO player, is that what you're saying, really? An ISO scorer?
Yeah, someone who can just do it all, not all offensively, but can score, like can get their own shot, facilitate a little bit, it's 3 levels, that kind of thing.
Man, that's if Rex ever comes out from Jurassic Park, then I think that'd be a great question for him. If I had to say, I would probably say the hardest thing is just being smart about the game to being successful. Because I feel like there's a lot of athletic guys out there that, but if you're talking just as a skill, which is you're talking about multifaceted skills. Yeah, I would probably say so because that one you have all the control over. Everything else you got to have, you got to rely on the team. That one I feel you have the most control over. If you have to say one thing, you got to have the ball in your hands. You got to be able to shoot, be able to pass, etc. Like you were saying.
Yeah.
So I guess it's some. So I would say so. Yeah, I would have to say so. But I would say it's probably not the hardest thing. It's probably knowing when to move and knowing when to shoot and pass and et cetera like that.
Yeah, this I don't know if you maybe remember him, but that the GB production guy, he came on my channel that one time. He had a good point too about scoring and that is like it's the most direct stat that exists. Like you can see how much someone scored per minute and their efficiency, right? Like it's definitely the most transparent stat that we have for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I agree. I think I think the things that you have to go and look through the weeds with is with the free throw shooting too, because a lot of the points that they get don't really correlate. So there's that next level of checking to see how they got those points, because sometimes it doesn't make sense. You'll shoot 3 for 18 and have 20 points. I'm exaggerating, but sometimes it does happen like that if you got a high volume guy that gets to the line a lot.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, that doesn't add up. But yeah, I think in general, it does say, I guess, how good you are at it. In a way, if you take the efficiency and then you take the points. Yeah, if I had to say, I think if there is anything that I would say is more transparent, if I had to put it on something, I would say would be a rebound. I think that's pretty easy to keep track of. But that's not, rebounds aren't sexy like scoring. Scoring's sexy. People want to see people dunk and take long shots and, do fancy layups and stuff. Not a lot of people find grabbing a basketball off of a bad shot attractive.
That's every sport everywhere. Scoring is king.
Yeah. For the chat, RC says the hardest thing to do is being undersized and hitting the boards very effectively on both ends. Defensive and offensive rebounding, you have to have great awareness. Yep. I guess you could say that. I think there's just, you kind of have to rely on, what my point was is you have to rely on other things, but yeah, I agree with that. Tim says, why only MJ is that consistent and high, scoring over 30 points? If it would be very easy, more great players would have done it. I agree with that. There are a lot of, or I don't say a lot, but there are quite a few guys that have been efficient and scored high. Wilt Chamberlain being one. And I think he, in regards to just pure numbers, likely did it better just off the top of my head. RC says like a Dennis Rodman or a Ben Wallace. Tim says RC. True, being undersized is more challenging. Michael says carrying an offense is the hardest thing to do scoring-wise. RC says scoring is just the sexiest thing one can do on the court. That's why it's a supreme premium on that. But rebounding effectively and efficiency, it takes a dog to do over and over again. Absolutely. RC says you literally just said my comment into a microphone. RC, you can see I look up like this, so I did not read it and do it. Not to say that you are saying that I stole it, but yeah, we're on the same wavelength. Talking about Dallas Mavericks and Michael Jordan again, I saw this record. It seems that Michael Jordan was 18-7 against the Dallas Mavericks.
Not bad, actually. We'll take that.
Is there a game that you can remember outside of the one that you just mentioned that you went to, where that you were happy to see either Michael Jordan do very good against the Mavericks just because it was a great game, or one that you saw that the Mavericks were able to get out on top of Michael Jordan?
Absolutely. Glad you asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Jordan's last year with Chicago and his last game against Dallas and in Dallas, Dallas won in overtime. And essentially, the Bulls scored 6 points in the fourth quarter, and Jordan went 5-11 from the free throw line. Essentially, if he just had to hit a few more shots, they would have won in regulation. But that's definitely, I remember that game being like a big game. Remember the Mavs, this was also like a time when the Mavs were trying to get to that next like level of being above average. I would say by this time we were average. Maybe below average, right? There were some really bad teams in the 90s, right? So Michael Finley had been here for a few years. He had kind of become the guy. He had a really good game. Yeah, and they beat the Bulls in overtime. And then that was the last game that they played each other, right? With Jordan in a Bulls jersey. And then oddly enough, the last time they played each other with Jordan in a Wizards jersey, it went into overtime as well, and the Mavs won on the road in Washington, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, that's definitely. I remember that game. That was like a really big thing in Dallas. People were talking about it for a while. So, yeah, that's how bad the Mavs were at the time. Like it was a big deal. We beat the Bulls. So, yeah, I remember that game too very clearly.
So kind of in a similar ilk, not the Mavericks specifically, but it was the 76ers against the Miami Heat. It was the first year that Michael Carter Williams came into the league, and he was our new point guard. He was he was going to help drive the process on to the next level. They're like, this is a good pickup. I think we traded Drew Holiday for him, or for the pick. And he went off, and I think he got a quadruple double. He got at least a triple double, and the Sixers won the game, and they stomped the Heat. So I was hyped. And little did I realize, I think we went about 15 and 67 or whatever that is for 82 games. It was a terrible year. However, it was a great game for Michael Carter Williams, and not to say that it's exactly the same. But one time where it's like, man, this is the top team, the top dogs on that team. They came out and win. I think they won in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. And so I was super hyped. I was like, yeah, the process is over already, first year. And but yeah, it was terrible. Michael says the Mavs were sorry before Finley, Dirk, and Nash. Yeah. RC says. I'm sorry?
Yeah, they were bad. ESPN used to do I don't know if you guys remember, maybe 10, 15 years ago, ESPN used to do those top 10 lists. And I can't remember if it was 10 of the worst teams ever or 10 of the worst teams in NBA history. But I think there was 2 teams from the Mavs in the early 90s were on there. They were really bad. That was back in the Reunion Arena days too, and at halftime when I was younger and go with my dad, you could sneak down to the first level, almost no problem, right? It was it was really bad. So people, for those who don't know how bad it was before Mark Cuban, it was really bad. Dallas, at least Mavericks fans owe a lot to Mark Cuban, for really turning that thing around. So. But yeah, that's we used to be pretty bad for sure.
Yeah, and I've never gone to a lot of NBA games. I think I've been to 2 or 3.
Really, that's it.
Yeah. So, and I didn't go to an NBA game until I was in I think I'm 22.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I think I went to only one Sixers game, and then I went to a Warriors-Clippers game when it was Lob City, and it was before the Warriors won the title. I think it was the year before that, with Mark Jackson still there. And they got in a fight, so that was entertaining. That was in L.A. I saw them in L.A. play. And but I only went to 2 games. The L.A. game, I couldn't have done that. And for the Sixers, we had the cheap seats, but remembering that arena versus the LA one, it was not packed. I probably could have got away with it, but I was with my mom, and my brother, and my mom's fiance.
Yeah, unfortunately, the 2 biggest NBA games I've ever gone to was Game 3 in the finals in 2011, and Dirk missed a shot to tie it. Sent it to overtime, and the other one was when Nash was with Phoenix, and he hit a 3-pointer right in Terry's face to go to the Western Conference Finals, I believe. And the Mavericks lost in Game 6. So, unfortunately, the 2 biggest games I've been to have not turned out well. We're close, but did not turn out well.
Yeah, that's always the worst. I think both times I went, the teams lost that I wanted to win too. So, uh, and I think yeah, actually the Sixers, they played Washington with John Wall. It was like his second year, and it was not a very good game. Let me go back to the chat. Um, AC Green had like 19 rebounds that game. Um, RC says Michael Carter Williams, aka Tragic Johnson. Yeah.
Tragic Johnson. That's funny.
Carter Williams hit his apex during his first week in the NBA. I can't disagree with you there, RC. It was exciting, and then they went away. Michael says the Six are great at breaking Dart's heart. They absolutely are, man. And so I did this once. I did a friendly bet, for the people that may be watching, and it was 15-1, and it was a Jimmy Butler year, and I knew that they were going to make a move before they got Jimmy Butler, and they took off running after they got Jimmy Butler, and the guys that I had made the bet with decided that they were trying to pull back the bet because I got 15-1 before we got Jimmy Butler on the team. I'm like, nah, man, we made this bet before the season. It's on. And that was the year with the Kawhi 15 bounce shot. So I'm just giving another example about how the Sixers broke my heart. And then they traded Jimmy Butler, and we haven't made it out of the second round since. Or really, we haven't made it out of the second round since 2001, I believe. Or no. No, I think we got a second round in 2011 against the Celtics.
So are you a Sixers fan above all?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, if it comes down to the Sixers or the Spurs, I'm going to vote for the Sixers. But the Spurs were my pseudo team because they actually did well. So
yeah,
you know what I mean.
I get you.
That was
backup. Yeah, I got you.
It was a team I rooted for because they actually did well. RC says Cedric Ceballos, Robert Pack, AC Green, and Michael Finley.
Yeah, dude.
I remember Charles Barkley, infamous quote. He said they can't even beat an NCAA basketball team.
Gary Trent, for real, man. All those guys. Popeye Jones. Absolutely, yeah. The good old days, bro. That's funny. AC Green. We had AC Green for a while. Yeah, those are some good times.
And then he says, then they beat the Bulls. Tim said, yeah, they were kind of close, but Jordan is the only guard to score consistent over 30 points per game. If it was that easy, more players would have done that and even scored more than Jordan. They should have kept Butler and traded Simmons. Hey, back then I thought keeping Harris was a good idea because I thought Butler was too old. So I was happy with it. I was like, we got this young guy. He's able to hit these corner threes. He's an offensive monster. And little did I realize that, for one, they didn't ever use Harris how he should have been used after he left the Clippers, and two, Butler is just plainly better than him in hindsight. But whatever. I'm not a general manager. I'm blaming the Sixers, not me. What I wanted.
Yeah.
But Simmons was on the up and up, and before he just was too scared to play basketball anymore. He was a great player. I didn't even want to trade him for Harden back in the day when they were talking about trading him for Harden to Houston.
He had the easiest job, dude. Just play defense and hit layups and dunks. Like, that's it. Like, that's all you got to do, man.
And pass the ball, and he's a great passer too. And he could guard everybody. And he just got too afraid to even take free throws.
Yeah, that's a crazy story, insight to like the psyche.
Yeah, he was an all NBA player, all first team defense, arguably the best defensive player in the league. So I was all about Ben Simmons. I was just hoping he would take the next level. And even if he never did and just had the moxie, as they say, to go and take free throw shots, not afraid to go to the line, it still would have been okay, in my opinion, because he would have got people in foul trouble. And, but whatever happened to him, he just decided he was too scared to play basketball. I mean, outside of him, completely taking a dump on the Sixers, I hope he becomes a good player again. As of right now, doesn't really look like it, but I hope he does.
Yeah, I have an interesting tie-in to Michael Jordan and the Sixers and the Mavs. So I was looking up some stuff too, and apparently in '84 the Mavs they drafted 4th that year, if you remember in '84, and apparently they had made like a big push to the Bulls to try and get the 3rd pick for Jordan, and apparently it fell through. And so we drafted Perkins 4th, and then the Sixers got Barkley at 5. And to me, that was like the start of the downfall. Because remember, the Mavs were decent in the 80s for a couple of years. They went to the Western Conference Finals, I think, against the Lakers 1 or 2 times. I can't quite remember, but they had an okay team for a while. And I feel like just since then, it's just been like bad juju until we got Dirk and Nash and Finley and turned it around.
Yeah, I was reading about that too, and I mean, it is what it is, man. Like and to talk about more modern day Sixers picks, guys that I don't even want to get into it, man. The whole process has just been a big flop. Outside of we got Embiid and Simmons for the Markelle Fultz when we traded up for 1. That was the Jaylen Brown draft. The Tatum one, I believe, was the Ben Simmons draft. So, I mean, there are 2 Celtics that are on the same team, and
the Sixers, have had a rough go with the draft, that's for sure.
Yeah, and
I feel like what the Sixers do with the draft, the Mavs do with like big name free agents. They usually drop the ball. I will say, fortunately, we do okay with our top draft picks when we do actually draft. That's been a saving grace, but usually the draft's not much better overall.
Yeah, absolutely. To talk about Michael Jordan and the Mavericks again real fast, when Michael Jordan was talking about coming back in the league, I read that Mark Cuban was trying to get him on the Mavericks. Do you know a little bit about that story? Do you want to elaborate on it?
Yeah, so he made a big push, and this was 2001, I think. The Mavs were just about to move into the AAC first year. The American Airlines Center got a new stadium built, new arena. Cuban essentially said, we'll do whatever it takes to win, which was true because I think the Mavs had 2 50-win years, the years that he was with Washington. Unfortunately, though, what I didn't know at the time that I found out was that Jordan was like a minority owner with Washington and was part of the basketball operations or something. So he was kind of already committed, like pot committed in a way. I think it would have been really hard to pull him from Washington. But yeah, apparently Cuban made a big pitch, like had the papers drawn up just in case. Like he was 100% in. And I think it was going to take nothing short of a miracle to get him to move teams like that after he was already so involved in the Wizards day to day. But yeah, I found that out today that Cuban had done that in 2001.
Yeah, and something I read about too, and maybe I didn't hear you say it directly. I think you alluded to it in a certain way, but what if he did go in the Mavericks? Could they have beaten or at least stopped the Lakers, the Spurs, any of those dynasties? Do you think that they could have actually had a real push to make a deep playoff run, barring what you were saying with getting rid of some of these major guys on the team? Do you think it could have happened?
Yeah, well, I mean, what the crazy domino would have been, right, is so we just get to pick up Michael Jordan. We don't have to trade for him or anything. So if you had Nash, Dirk, Finley, and even an old Jordan as in your starting lineup, right? That's pretty good. I mean, even if you don't necessarily win, my question to the question is like, what if that gets Nash to stick around, or they say, hey, like we got a chance here to do something special or something like that. That would be the question I would have, is like, what happens to that nucleus of Finley, Dirk, and Nash, and like what happens with those guys, or maybe we trade one because now this player over here wants to come play with Jordan, who like we can't pass up on, or something like that. Like, who knows, right? Cuban would have definitely done anything and everything to see what he could have pulled off. But yeah, I don't know, contender, or if that would have got us over the hump. Kind of hard to say. Nash and Dirk were still pretty young at that time. So I don't know. I would say it leans towards still probably not, but would have been interesting for sure. Who knows? Jordan's veteran leadership maybe does something or something like that, but I would probably lean towards probably not. Definitely better, but I don't know if it gets him over the hump.
Do you think it could have influenced their leadership styles? Do you think that he could have maybe made them more intense at an earlier time? I mean, both of them went fairly far in the playoffs. Obviously, Dirk won a championship. But do you think that his influence could have made them better players in the long run if he was there? Or do you think it really would have made a difference?
It would have been interesting to see his effects on Nash too, but I would have liked to seen. I definitely think he could have helped Dirk's mentality for sure earlier in his career. That would have been actually probably the biggest thing Jordan could have done for us is, if he gives Dirk a little bit of that grit a little earlier on. Who knows what happens in 06 or something like that. If Dirk kind of matures in that certain field faster, doesn't take so long to sort of get like a chip on his shoulder and starts kind of, a little bit of that rubs off on him from Jordan. That probably could have been the biggest thing that he could have done for us if he doesn't just outright, take us all the way. But that would have been interesting to see in like his mid-range game, him and Dirk. That would have been nice to see if Dirk picks up on that a little faster or a little extra move or two. That would have been nice. Nash and Jordan would have been an interesting pair too, because Nash is on record saying too he wish he would have shot like more threes, been a little more aggressive back in his day. So I think he could have done a lot of wonders for Nash too, maybe even on the defensive end. But yeah, I think both those guys he could have done a lot for and sort of sped up the maturation process a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it would have been interesting to see. One thing that I saw also, speaking of the mid-range, and I saw this today. I'm not really sure if it's true or not, but I guess I just want to hear your opinion on it. Do you think Michael Jordan was the best mid-range shooter of all time?
That's a good question, man, because obviously I'd love to throw Dirk up. The thing about the mid-range, I guess, is you have to get the shot off is the big thing, right? Like, that's the one thing about Dirk that even if maybe he's not as clutch as Jordan or something like that, he's almost always getting that shot off. But it's obviously hard to put him above Jordan. I do remember seeing a stat of it showed something like over the 2000s, like who dominated what area of the floor, and they divided like each one up into 6 parts, and Dirk had like 5 out of 6 of the mid-range areas of the floor. But that's an interesting question. The mid-range is such a lost art. I mean, Jordan's definitely one of the best at the mid-range. There's no doubt about that. I guess it kind of depends. I think Jordan could maybe command a little more, create a little more from the mid-range, do a little more. But just getting a shot off, I mean, Dirk's probably got him in that department. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's up there for sure. The greatest, I'd have to go back and look. That's an interesting question. He's obviously like top 5, I think.
Yeah, and maybe not just as a pure jump shooter, but just his post game in the high post, being able to create from there, and then just off of the drive, being able to stop and pop. I guess just the variety of moves that he was able to do and score from the mid range may be a better indicator or better description of that versus only being a jump shooter.
He probably, I think the correct thing is like he probably has the most complete mid-range game, I think is a good way to put it. Like, I think if you say it like that, I think it's hard to think of someone who can do more than him. Like you're saying, the one dribble pull up, turnarounds, all kinds of different things. The quickness, the athleticism. It'd be hard to think of someone who has a more complete mid-range package than him.
Yeah, for sure. Let me get back to the chat real fast. RC says, but Ben Simmons wouldn't even shoot an automatic rifle if. I think I missed something. Sorry. Okay. What bench Simmons doing these days? Laying out his outfits for his next. He's on the bench. Laying out his outfits for the next time he's on the bench is what RC meant to say. Michael says Simmons behind the scenes had some form of mental trauma. Yeah, that's what they said, Michael, but they weren't really clear exactly what happened. He just said he had mental health issues. I mean, honestly, who knows what that life is like being just going into fame.
I think he just cracked, dude. If you want, I mean, not like in a horrific way. I think he just not even like broken in half. I think he just cracked a little bit, and he was just like, "This is my life. Like this is crazy." And I think he just got in his head. Like I don't think there's really anything wrong with him. You know what I mean? I don't think he's like beating his girlfriends or going out on benders or you know what I mean. Like I think he just got in his head. I think he cracked. Like he just mentally cracked. I don't know how else to put it. It's really, really an interesting thing to watch sometimes. Like not like in a mean way, but like some people, pressure breaks steel pipes. And like, if you don't think pressure doesn't get to people, it's really like, it's really crazy watching the human psyche sometimes take over the body in ways like that. It's quite interesting in my opinion to watch.
And some people just can't really thrive in certain environments. They just don't, for some reason. And I'm not saying I've never been guilty of this in some aspects, or that I've never seen it happen. So I can understand how it happened. But some people, once they get in a certain environment, they just don't grow. And like you're saying, Nick, with the pressure, if you're unable to expand what you're able to withstand, you're gonna crack. And if you just still have that mentality of being a college basketball player or just playing pickup and just playing the game, he's getting involved with the Kardashian girls or the one Jenner girl, making millions of dollars. I know it's so horrible, right? But to the point of being able to keep up with the game on top of it, being an all, one of the best players in the league, or trying to live up to that, amongst just having all these outside distractions that come with fame. Some people just can't grasp it all. And I think that's one thing that maybe was good for Michael Jordan, although he was into the marketing. Obviously he sold the Air Jordan shoe, did a lot of commercials and stuff like that, but he wasn't, and I know it's the social media age, but to the point of it didn't seem like he was going out there really looking for that attention. He kind of kept to himself, outside of going gambling and stuff like that. But it didn't seem like he was really looking for the media attention outside of, unless it was good for him. So I think that might have helped with him being as good as he was. And I feel like it seems like that's generally the case for a lot of people too. Is this if they actually stay focused on the game, that they do better versus get involved with all this outside stuff.
Yeah, like, and I remember one of the biggest things I remember learning, like when you play as a player, they'll tell you like players are made in the summer, right? And I only bring that up to say guys like Ben Simmons, and there's some other ones I could mention that their game just never evolves, right? They just in like it's you can maybe improve your energy a little bit. You work on like some stamina, you get your diet right? But like you can't really teach defensive anticipation. Like you can't really teach once they get to the pros, right? Like you're not going to teach them anything new about passing, but it's like you can pick up 1 or 2 offensive moves or shots or something, right? Like you can do that. You can pick up a little 15-foot turnaround, right? Like you are as athletic, and it's just a matter of if you get a little guy on you, just hit this little 15-foot turnaround. Like you should be able to evolve your game in some way. And like with Ben Simmons, it's like, just show me something, right? You're telling me you can't improve your free throws over a summer? You can't shoot 10,000 free throws a day? You're a professional athlete. You really can do whatever you want, practice as long as you want. And, like Dwight Howard's another guy that I've been kind of salty on because he just so much relied on his athleticism. It's like, get a baby hook, get a little bank shot, like there's so many other things you could do to be better. And it's like guys like that who don't evolve get on my nerves a little bit. And like, yeah, with Ben Simmons, it's like you can't just run around like you did in college in the NBA. Like it's not going to work like that. You're in a whole nother world right now of athletes, and there's very few guys who can do that. And like I don't think you're not cut out for that kind of like just grinding way of playing, or just running around all the time and being the guy in college. I don't think you're cut out for that in the pros. And he's done nothing. He's just cracked, and that's why I don't know. I'm kind of over him, but yeah, like just kind of what we're saying. Like some people get on the lights and they crack, and they don't. I want to see you evolve. Like come back next year with a little left hand, little scoop or something. I don't know, anything, right? You can learn one thing at least, right? And like you're saying, you were saying that's what we think of it. Like he's just gonna go play pickup ball and just shoot hoops with the bros at this nice gym. It ain't gonna work, dude. You're not showing me anything.
Yeah, it was terrible. RC says, but Ben Simmons wouldn't even shoot an automatic rifle if 10 zombies were coming at him. He'd pass the gun to an empty chair nearby. Nick, didn't y'all have Jason Kidd, Jimmy Jackson, and Jamal Mashburn at the same time? And what happened with that?
The 3 J's, and then it blew up. I want to say Kidd went first. We traded Kidd for Finley, I believe. Finley played with us for like a year or two, and then that's when we made the move. We traded down out of the spot we had with Tractor Trailer and the Bucks, I think. Got Dirk, and then we traded our second round pick or something like that for somebody, and then we traded a player and immediately turned around and got Nash with that. So we got Dirk and Nash in the same draft. We didn't draft Nash, but we got them in the same package year, like during the draft, working stuff. But yeah, I think Jason Kidd went to the Suns, and Nash backed him up for a year or so. And Jamal Mashburn, I think, went to the Hornets, and Jimmy Jackson, I can't remember where Jim Jackson went. But yeah, they never could improve. I don't know, but yeah, they all went on to have, obviously, I think, very respectable careers. Even Jim Jackson and Jamal Mashburn. Jamal Mashburn was a pretty good scorer for a while, and Jim Jackson had a pretty long career as a good role player. I remember he played a few years with Houston. But yeah, and obviously Kidd went on to be one of the best. But
yeah, absolutely. Tim says Galaxy is a clown. I mean, he can have his opinion, but he's always acting like his opinion is the only true and objective opinion. But it's not fact that scoring is very easy. Tim, I don't know if you maybe you got maybe you're not watching this live. I know we were talking about that a while ago, so maybe you're just watching it back, unless you just decided to say it again. KG says the reason no one wanted to join the Bulls was because how their owner threatened or treated the GOAT, and they don't have a chance if that's how MJ was treated. Yeah, I never heard KG specifically say that, but I mean, it kind of goes both ways for me. I do think that Krause kind of gets the short end of the stick on a lot of things because he was the general manager and he put those teams together. So, and I'm sure he talked to Phil Jackson a little bit, but according to The Last Dance, they didn't really have the greatest relationship either. But to the point is that he was able to supply Michael Jordan with those teammates to win those championships. And even if they had a contentious relationship, I mean, I feel like he treated him pretty fairly and did the Chicago Bulls pretty well. I'm not saying that it was or was not the right move to blow up the team in '98. If I were him, I would have kept it together because, I mean, why not try again if you just won 3 in a row? But that's just my idea behind it. But I don't, he won 6 NBA championships, so I would have to say that he probably saw something coming. But how he was treated, it seems like, watching The Last Dance, MJ was kind of a jerk to him. And I'm not saying Krause was a great guy, but it seemed like he got bullied a lot. And it's probably not a good idea to bully your quote unquote boss. You know what I mean? The guy has all the control over where you're going to be. So what do you think about that?
The only negative thing I have to say about MJ is that I bet he was very difficult to be around and play with sometimes. I have no doubts about that. I guess me, I'm a pretty hard-headed person, and I don't take stuff very personal. So I guess with me, that's not, as big of a deal with me as others. Like, you're a professional NBA player. Y'all settle that shit like men or what have you, I guess I'm a little different, right? Like, I'm just wired differently. Like, that's a lot of people get stuck up on that, and that doesn't bother me. So, yeah, I bet Jordan. That's the only thing I've ever said is I bet Jordan was very difficult to be around sometimes, and he probably demanded a lot. It's kind of like Bob Knight. People love Bob Knight, and they would say, "I would love to play for Bob Knight." And then there's a lot of kids, and especially some parents who are like, I would never want you to go play for Bob Knight. There's some people who love it and some people who think maybe I'm just here to play basketball. I don't want to have to deal with a coach who's up my what the whole time. And some people say I love it. I love if Jordan called me out or challenged me, I would love it, right? Some people don't like that. So that's the only thing I say about Jordan in terms of what you said. Jordan's kind of a jerk. I bet he was, and I guess me, I'd give it right back to him. I wouldn't care, right? Yeah, you can beat me on the court, no doubt, but I'm not. If you say something to me, I'm gonna say something right back. I really don't care. I'll try to fire one back at you too. Can't show any weakness, right? That's my thing too in sports and competition. Even if it is Jordan, you can't show any weakness. You just can't at all. Miss a shot, tell him you missed it on purpose. That kind of thing.
I did it on purpose.
Yeah.
Tim says, don't do that. Dirk is not near Jordan. I guess he's talking about the mid-range stuff.
The mid-range. The only thing I say about Dirk is that his specific trump card, right? His ace in the hole is that he can get a shot off, almost anywhere, anytime. That's the only thing I said. Jordan, I would definitely take Jordan's game, mid-range game, over Dirk's. There's no doubt about that. Dirk just has that one X factor. It's hey, there's 3 seconds. What do we do? The least we can do is just throw it into Dirk and get a shot off, right? He can do that at least.
Yeah, absolutely. RC says, my top 3 mid-range shooters are John Stockton, Mark Price, and Steve Nash. Just my humble opinions.
John Stockton, really?
Well,
I think the mid-range, it is a little bit of a post-up bump. You got, there is a little bit of physicality to it. So I don't quite agree with that list, but those are all good shooters, though, for sure.
Yeah, and he specifically said shooters. So I believe I think he was just going off of that, not necessarily the whole mid-range game totality.
I could more acceptable than for sure.
Jordan and Bird probably round out my top 5 in jump shooters. So Stockton, Price, Nash, MJ, Bird, and then Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is an honorable mention. Yeah, I guess you're talking just plain shooters. I put Jordan in there talking about. I probably misspoke. I meant more mid-range player, like as a total, not necessarily just his mid-range shooting percentage, but just what he could do in the mid-range and the options he had. So that's what I was saying earlier.
Because when I think of mid range, I guess the number one thing I think of is you have to be able to create your own shot. Is what I think of. Like you're gonna have a guy on your hip. He's definitely gonna be on you. Like you have to be able to. Like if you like Nash is not an ISO guy, right? Nash more than likely you would never just give the ball in an ISO on a wing and just say break him down and score. After a pick and roll mismatch, yes, you might do that. But in terms of just having a post game where you would just say ISO this guy and score, like I guess I wouldn't think of like John Stockton or Nash like that. If Nash got a mismatch, like I saw when they would switch with him and Dirk, that's a different thing. Of course, it's a little bit of a different story. But if he just had like a good defensive guard or another point guard on him, I don't think you would say, here, just ISO, take this guy. Like, I guess that's when I think of mid-range, I think of creating your own shot. You got a guy on you. You have to be able to do something right, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. And that's what I was saying. Because you go and you can take anybody, shoot the ball and they're wide open. It's going to look good on paper, but you know what I mean? What did they actually do with it? Were they just wide open and took a jump shot? And everyone could take a jump shot in the NBA. You know, you're the best 500 guys in the league. You see, not to go off on a rant about it, but you see like Boban, draining 3-pointers, but he never shoots that in a game, for the most part.
Yeah.
Amongst other people like that. Jordan could shoot and drive and dunk and dribble. Dirk could only shoot, but he was not as consistent as Jordan.
Yeah, so we were saying that like off the dribble, side to side movement, the total package, like he's definitely better. There's no question about that.
But do you think he was just generally consistent like Jordan with what he could do, or would you say that he was streaky?
Oh, Dirk, I mean, they're both consistent. Dirk didn't do it at the level of obviously that MJ did it, but Dirk's in the 50, 40, 90 club. I mean, he's up there in efficiency with some of the best. So, and he did it as a jump shooter. Remember that, like a lot of it's sort of crazy to think that Dirk is in the top like 7 or 8 all-time scoring as a jump shooter, right? Like that is, got to realize like MJ, it's not a knock against MJ with his athleticism. He got a lot of dunks, a lot of layups, that kind of thing, right? A lot of transition stuff too. Like Dirk got all of his points as a jump shooter, right? Which is, it's just sort of remarkable to think about over the span. But, I mean, they're both consistent. I don't know. Again, Dirk didn't do it at the level that MJ did it, right? But they were both over like a 15-year period, right? 10, 15-year period. They were some of the best to ever do it. Which reminds me of one of my other MJ Dallas tie-ins was when MJ said that Dirk was only one of like a handful of guys that he thinks could be just as great in his generation as he was in his own generation. So that made me think of that while we're on it.
Yeah, I think so. Because Dirk kind of just did his thing. Not to sound kind of cliche about it, but I mean, like you were saying, he was a jump shooter. If you were a jump shooter and you're big, look at the guys back then, like the Luke Longleys and the Tony Kukocs, the guy and the Sabonises, just the other tall guys that were able to take some jump shots. They all did fairly well, and I think Dirk really just took it to the next level, and they gave him the opportunity to do it. So if he was going to do it, I think he could have done it back then too. I don't I agree with Michael on that. Is if he was allowed to be him, he would have done great.
Yeah, and I guess I would see this argument. It's kind of like the skyhook, right? Like the skyhook would be a good shot in any generation, right? That's kind of like I think Dirk's jump shot translates anytime, anywhere, any place, right? No one. I don't think there's a lot of guys who are able to stop that, right? So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a whole nother discussion. I love hook shots, and they have disappeared, and I don't know why. But
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
I do know why on paper, but I don't know why for real. Like it's. Let me get back to the comments. There's still a decent amount. RC says Ben Simmons equals a modern day Nick Anderson after those 4 missed finals free throws. Oh yeah, that jeez. Yeah, my heart was broken. You're right. With that as well. Tim says Jordan's 5.7 assists per game. Dirk only 2.5 in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean,
Dirk's doesn't have big assist numbers. No one is arguing Dirk's as good as MJ. Okay, no one is making that argument.
The Jordan's teammates complain about MJ being difficult. Well, Scotty does, 20 years later, 25 years later.
Even if they don't complain, do you understand? Like, that's my point. Even if they don't complain, I'm sure he demanded a lot and rode them. Like, what, he punched Steve Kerr, right? I mean, there's definitely, I mean, it's like being a teammate with Kobe, right? Like, Kobe either ran you out of town if you couldn't handle it, or, kind of being a little exaggeration there, but Kobe either tested you and see if you were putting in the work and you wanted it as bad as he did, or you weren't worthy, right? So I mean, that's kind of all I meant. Is Jordan expected to win, he expected the best, and he had to know that come hell or high water, like, you were ready to ride, right? So that demands a lot, right? And we're talking about the best league in the world. That's a tall task, and I'm sure he made sure guys were, in the thick of it as much as he was, in a way, right? So that's all. Like I said, I love it. I wouldn't have said it's a problem. I just would have said that's who you're playing with. Like, that's your teammate. This is how bad he wants it. How bad do you want it? Like, it would only motivate me, right? So I don't really see it as a negative. I'm just saying it's a part of it.
Mike Tyson is way more difficult than Jordan. Yeah, but especially when he was all on drugs. I think he definitely that. RC says, Tim Nick, I say Steve Kerr's jaw would say yes.
Yeah.
Tim says Dirk was good, no doubt, but we're talking about his airness here. Michael says KB24 was a monster in the mid-range. Yep, another great mid-range player. Tim says, RC, what happened to Kerr's jaw? RC says, Jordan gave him the ultimate Superman punch in practice. It was Draymond and Jordan Poole before the internet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but when you compare and mid-range between Dirk and MJ, then we come back to the topic, is scoring easy? MJ being the clear leader. Why? Just look at the stats. It's the same topic. Okay, I get what you're saying, Tim.
Do you remember why he hit Steve Kerr? I don't remember why.
I don't remember. I think he just wasn't. I think he just punched him, just like not anything too crazy. What I remember, I don't remember it being like anything specific, like specifically disrespectful from Steve Kerr.
Yeah,
I think he just didn't do the play right, something like that, trivial. And Jordan just got in his face and punched him. But I guess he felt he could. Obviously, he felt like he could do it. I know he didn't do it to everybody. I don't think he would have punched Rodman in the face,
nope.
amongst other guys. So, RC says, "Is that punch on YouTube?" By the way, Curly surely deserved that. Or Kerr surely deserved that, excuse me.
What did Steve Kerr do to deserve it? That's the question.
A question for you, Nick. If you swap Dirk out with Tim, Duncan during their best years. Do you think Dirk has 5 titles on the Spurs, and does Duncan just get 1 title like Dirk? Just wondering. What's your take on that?
That's a good question. That's a really good
He's asked,
question.
he's asking you, but I'm passionate about Tim Duncan, so I want to follow up if people are interested. But yeah, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think Tim Duncan does translate well to the Mavs at that time. I mean, you got to realize, like, Tim Duncan at that time, like after Shaq, I'm not sure if there was another dominant big man, right? Like Tim Duncan was everything the Mavs ever needed when they had Dirk, right? Was like that guy like that. So I would think Duncan probably wins a few more. Again, the Mavs have always had a really good backcourt. They've always had really good scoring. I think if you put Tim Duncan in some of those lineups, I think they do really well. And again, if you paired Dirk with someone like David Robinson, right? I mean, and Bruce Bowen and Ginobili and Parker, right? I mean, it's kind of hard not to think that Popovich wouldn't use Dirk the right way, right? So, what was it? 6 total between them? They go 3-3.
Yeah, maybe. For me, I think, and I'm not saying Pop's a bad coach. I think that worked for Tim. But I think Tim was that guy. Joe Coughlin made fun of me for saying that about Michael Jordan. That I said in one of my videos, I said Jordan is that guy. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if I think they go 3-3, then that's kind of a nod that Tim Duncan is that guy, right? So that he would still get you 3 rings, even in a totally different hypothetical situation, right?
And it's all here, it's all, whatever you say. It's just, putting people in different places.
That's a really good question, though. I like that question.
I know nobody asked me, but I think Dirk would have won 1, and I don't think that Tim Duncan would have won 5. I could see Tim Duncan winning more because, for one, he came in and he was clearly the best player coming out of the draft. He'd won National Player of the Year. He was absolutely amazing. Even coming in year 1, David Robinson talks about how he knew just Tim Duncan was better than him. When he was young, he really couldn't be stopped on offense. Like, he was able to score at will. He would get you in that mid-range post. He had the step at the time, so he would just spin around and do that. He never had a left hand. He'd go spin around on that on the left block and then hit you with that right hand layup on the left side, and or just hit the bank shot or whatever. But he could do anything at that time. And that's how they ended.
So you think Dirk doesn't even win 1 with like Ginobili, Parker, Bowen, Popovich? Not even 1, huh?
No.
Dang. And Robinson, yeah. I don't know, man. That's crazy.
No. Those guys, Tim Duncan elevated those guys. Those guys, outside of David Robinson, who had came off of a major injury, and that's why they were able to pick up Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
And he was never really the same after that. Ginobili and Parker were role players for Tim Duncan. They fit the system. And I don't even think they would, obviously there's all these dynamics and intangibles. Who knows what picks they would have had. But I don't think those guys would nearly be remembered, or even possibly like particularly Ginobili. He might not have even made the league.
Dude, I don't know, man. These are some crazy comments. I don't know. You don't think Ginobili wouldn't have made the league without Tim Duncan?
I mean, he was the last. I think he was the second last pick in that draft.
Oh, but I mean, maybe, yeah, but he still would have got drafted, right? Or like, I mean, eventually he would have proven how good he was.
I don't know. I mean, Pop might have not even been the coach then, or R.C. Buford be the manager.
Dang.
I don't think it would have happened the way it happened. I think that Tim Duncan made those guys who they were, and Pop and Buford had the vision to make that team as good as it was.
And you think Duncan wins less than 5 with the Mavs or more than 5?
Oh, less than 5.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that like it probably just doesn't. They just don't do as good. overall.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Overall, I don't think Dirk wins one with the Spurs, and maybe putting superimposing Duncan on some of those teams. I could see him winning a few if in a perfect case scenario. But I think that Duncan was made for or Spur. That marriage between Duncan and Pop really worked, and the team itself. But Duncan was that good where I think he would have won probably at least a championship along the line because he really was that good. But he just was in a great situation and amplified everything. And I think Dirk just got on that really good team that one year that was really defensive heavy, minus having Terry, being able to shoot also. And I think it just was focused around Dirk, and Dirk had obviously they won. But they were never really able to put that team together. And when they did, they decided to break it up the next year. But having Ginobili and Parker, I don't think it wouldn't have been the same in my opinion. Plus Duncan he was defense and offense, not near the end of the career is mostly defense. But he was still he was so good, man. And I don't think it wouldn't have worked in my opinion, Dirk with them. I don't think the whole thing would have worked. Pop would have got fired.
I would definitely be more interested to see Duncan with the Mavs through the years on the teams that Dirk played with. Maybe that's just because I know the teams more. It's like I'd be more interested to see how Duncan would interact with those guys. But I think you could have put some of that same talent level around Duncan in Dallas there for a few years. So I still think Duncan at least gets a couple. I mean, I really do. Some of those Mavs teams were really good. They didn't have a Duncan, a low post defense, rebounding or low post scoring, right? So I think it would have been interesting to see Duncan on a few of those Mavs teams for sure.
Yeah, and in short, whatever number it was, I think that Duncan would have been more successful on the Mavs. But I don't think that
I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
Yeah, in comparison with those.
I really think Duncan would have gelled well with some of those teams. Honestly, that was such a good question because when I thought about it, I thought about Duncan playing on some of those Mavs teams. That would have been really fun to watch. I think he really would have. I think he really would have done some good things with some of those teams.
He could have fit anywhere, man.
Yeah,
and it they catered the team to him, and he had a great attitude for the Spurs.
I do think when it comes to talking about, if you're just going to try and make an objective argument, right, about who has the best resume to claim being the GOAT, I think he's definitely top 5. Just looking at his resume, right, just on paper, what do they have? I think he's got a top 5 resume just about. He's definitely close to that if he's not top 5.
Yeah, there's an argument for it, specifically the winning percentage, for games, let alone obviously a bunch of other things. But I think he has the highest winning percentage of all time. So for games, not championships, but
yeah, and defensive win shares, I think he's second or third, something like that.
He's second to Bill Russell,
yeah.
And the gap between him and Bill Russell
Pretty
and then
big.
him and everybody else they're both big.
Yeah.
So outside of Bill Russell, he is by far the best according to that metric, the best defensive player.
Yeah.
RC says, okay, hold on. Okay, never mind. RC says, I asked Google, they said because Steve Kerr had the nerve to stand up to Jordan in practice. RC says, subsequently, Phil kicked MJ out of the practice after the punch. Michael says, Duncan would win 4, Dirk 2. Yeah, maybe. Tim says, I just saw MJ on YouTube. MJ was apologizing to Kerr for punching him. However, MJ said that Kerr punched him on the chest first. Okay. Yeah, well, that definitely would not be something that I would like either. Don't look like a big deal to me, and Kerr looks still healthy. Yeah, he didn't kill him. He didn't Rudy Tomjanovich him and end his career or anything like that.
Dang, yeah, that's crazy. The punch heard around the world.
Yeah. And then RC, I believe, is talking to me. He says, "You're going off the railroad now. Slow down." Hey, I'm going with it. We're going off the tracks here, baby. We're going off. No, but for real, I think that was just the perfect team that they surrounded Tim with, and they picked guys that would complement him. And I mean, that next year after he left, they did good, and then after that, it just kind of all started falling apart for the most part. Granted, that's not Tim Duncan's fault or Pop's fault. There's a lot of injuries and stuff like that, but like they really fell off the deep end after that. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about with Dallas and Michael Jordan?
Yeah, the other story is that the great Michael to Michael connection here. Michael Finley in high school, I think it was high school or Wisconsin. I want to say high school because he won some competition to play a game of horse with Michael Jordan. I don't know if you knew that. And Michael Jordan, of course, won. But yeah, Michael Finley back in the day, I want to say it was for high school. I'm like 75% sure because he was in high school. He had committed to Wisconsin, I think. It was either some kind of dunk contest or something like that. And so he won the opportunity to play horse with Michael Jordan. I think that's the last story that I have. Yeah, that's the last one I had. That was always like the famous story around Finley, is you can talk about Finley without mentioning how he played horse against MJ in high school. So
yeah, that's funny. No, I never heard that story. I think it's always cool when you hear of players that are up and coming that, in high school per se, or even college, and they face off against the pros, and then they kind of meet up, and it's kind of like the young lion versus the old lion scenario. Now, I'm not saying Michael Finley was ever the young lion versus Michael Jordan being the old lion, or that's just my opinion. So
no.
I hate to poop on Michael Finley like that.
No, it's fine.
But I don't think he was in the ilks of Kobe Bryant or Allen Iverson or those guys during that time. So
I think he made one or two All-Star games, maybe. And that was like when he was the only guy on Dallas, so his numbers were like way pumped up. And I know that he was in a dunk contest once. But I think that's about the pinnacle. Definitely, Michael Finley is definitely an underrated 2-foot in-game dunker. I will say that. That's Michael Finley's got some nice heads on the walls in terms of guys he's dunked on. So, but there's just something nice about a 2-foot coming to a stop and gathering yourself, and everyone's just waiting to see what's going to happen. But yeah, Michael Finley's definitely an underrated 2-foot in-game dunker. He had some nice mixtapes.
Speaking of heads on the wall, because Tim had mentioned him a couple of times, did you ever watch my debate with him yet?
Oh, no, I haven't. Shit. Yeah, I need to do that.
It's pretty funny.
How long of a debate was it?
It's 20 minutes.
Okay, I can maybe do a commentary on it then.
Oh, yeah, that'd be hilarious. Oh, by the way, because I was talking to you about that, we were talking about that Inception thing. Man, your reaction videos, like, I think my video was like 10 minutes. You made it 40 minutes. I'm like, dude, I can't react to a 40-minute video.
Dude, yeah, like one of my biggest things, like, I definitely can just talk forever. I need to, because I always want to say so much, so, like, I need to somehow tighten it up a little bit.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying it's a problem, but I wanted to do it, and because we talked about it before you released it, and I was like, God, man, I can't do this because the 40 minutes will turn into an hour.
Yeah, in an hour it'll be 2 hours. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a fun idea. But I never did it because I'm like, dude, I can't.
That would be funny. We should try to find a shorter video of Tug, and someone start it, and then we try to make as quick as a reaction video as possible every time. Until it just gets longer, until it's like 2 hours, and it's like, okay, this one's done.
Yeah, I was looking through some of his videos to do another reaction to, and he's got a couple debates, but a lot of his videos are fairly long too. Like I don't like doing reactions because I do have a fairly popular video where I did it was like a 20-minute video where I did a reaction where it was like half an hour, and that still was kind of a struggle. Um, but I don't like to do them that are longer than 10 minutes initially, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would do a reaction to a reaction that's like 20 minutes, half an hour, but I don't think I could go more than that. Like it's half an hour is pushing it. Not 20 minutes, I think, is really where it's still okay to do. But what I'm getting at is a lot of his videos are long, especially his debates, but he's got a couple short ones. So
yeah, just let me know. We can do it, and I'll try to be quick.
Nice, yeah, definitely. Because yeah, some of his first ones are like 5 minutes long. I think that'd be perfect to do it. Either you started or I started, and then just go back and forth a couple times. But yeah, I don't really have any other Dallas Mavericks stories with Michael Jordan. I just looked up some of these things that I thought were interesting, and because you're a Mavericks fan, and for people that are interested in Mavericks and Michael Jordan things, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk about it.
There's not a ton of crossover, but I think we covered it pretty good. I guess the only other thing is that I forgot to mention we were talking about how Mark Cuban was going to make a push to get Jordan. Don't forget that the year before, in year 2000, he had signed Dennis Rodman, who only played 12 games or something like that. But he signed Dennis Rodman. I forgot to mention that. And then the only other like modern thing is that Luka's in the MJ brand with Nike. But that's, I mean, if you want to call that 6 degrees of separation with Jordan and the Mavericks, then that counts, I guess. But I think other than that, we've covered all the main stuff just about.
Just add one more thing with Luka, since you mentioned it. He's the only other guy, or he's the only guy since, I think, Michael Jordan to have 10 40-point games in a row under 23 years old. So
I mean,
yeah, I guess that's connection, yeah.
If Luka could just get some hardware, man, like he's on a really nice trajectory. He'll have to get in shape and work on that defense a little bit, but I think that can be done. But yeah, he's entering. Remember I talked about it. The 7th year is known as the Jordan year. It's like this is the bar, right? If you want to start, by this time you've got to have won a ring or done something, or you know what I mean, like. So Luka's entering a big year this year. I think, to say the least, I think Dallas will be fun to watch. So we'll see what happens. I also meant to send you a power ranking. They had Dallas like 6th or 7th overall in the NBA, like 4th or 5th in the West, something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I meant to send it to you because, like, yeah, you're a little low and I'm a little high. So we'll see what happens. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they do good. I have nothing against them. I just, but maybe they're right. Maybe we'll see. They've definitely been wrong on either direction before. So
definitely.
Hopefully for your case and for other Mavericks fans that they do well.
Yep.
But yeah, I want to thank you for coming on again. It's always fun talking with you. Even though your reaction video is a little long, as we're talking about. But it's always
good.
Yeah, no, but it's always great. You always got great stuff to say, so thank you again. And we let's figure something out for next week too. I don't want to keep people on the live stream to talk about it, but I'm trying to think of something, and I can't really think of something off the top of my head. But let's talk about that.
I'd like to offer a topic for maybe Sundays or some other time, and that is your top 1 or 2 either NBA or basketball conspiracy theories or rumors. And you can either just say one that you think is true or like you hope it's true or something like that, but just whatever your like favorite NBA rumor or myth or fix or whatever it is, like you should bring that up. That'd be funny to hear everyone's favorite conspiracy theory.
Oh yeah, that if we do that on Sunday, that's going to be a long one because you could just keep talking and say what if, what if. It might be more appropriate if we just do it, but it would be fun to hear everybody's on Sunday. Yeah, but yeah, definitely. We'll talk more about it and see which day will work better and see if the other people are interested. But yeah, absolutely. I know you brought it up before about doing it. I think that'd be a great show, man.
And you don't have to elaborate because I know we're wrapping it up. But do you believe the whole Jordan and the mob with his dad story having to retire at all?
I think it's possible.
Yeah,
I
somewhat
again,
possible.
I don't want to
Okay.
go down. I definitely don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but
Yeah. That's just obviously
it's right there.
That's the obvious one with Jordan. So
Absolutely. Michael says Finley was a great teammate. Absolutely. I want to thank you, Chad, for coming and joining us as well. It's always great to hear your impact. RC, Michael, Tim, and I believe there was somebody else that came in here as well for a while. I don't remember. I apologize. It was in the beginning. But I want to thank you all for joining. It's great having your interaction. And if any of you want to call in the future, please do. I'd love to have more people on the show. And like I said, and I'm going to put it out on the next lives. I want to give the option for people to call in as well. It may not happen immediately, but at least have a time for it to happen. Are you good with that, having people call in and chatting with people?
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'm down for it.
Yeah. So if you'd like to go and call in, I'd like that in the future too. But yeah, thank you for your continued support. I believe all of you know who Nick is, but if you're watching or watch this on the back play later on, please subscribe to his channel. He's got a lot of great stuff on there, a lot of great editing, and a lot of great long form videos, particularly about individual players like Dirk Nowitzki, Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird, and Hakeem Olajuwon. If you're interested in that stuff, please watch it, let alone other great videos, one particularly being on Michael Jordan, why he's the objective GOAT. So check out his page if you haven't. He's got a lot of great stuff on there.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. And if you don't know me, well, you had to subscribe to chat because I put that option on. But if not, if you like what I'm doing, you haven't chat and you're watching, please like and subscribe to my channel as well if you like this stuff. I love doing live streams. And I love just interacting with everybody. It's a fun time. But yeah, I hope you all have a great night. And Michael Jordan fans are the best.